1992. What sparks a meeting, or you or your crew, a group of member founders, to say, we need a Pan-African Film Festival and it needs to be now in LA, so let's do the first annual.
That's excellent. So the youngsters will hear how it's done. We had made a decision after Stevie gave us the opportunity to take him to Nigeria in the Battle for Cannes in '82 to do the Olympics. And then we decided, as a result of Brothers on the Continent and the program director here at Central Ocean said we should think about moving into creating a film festival as the next step in terms of this cultural struggle, pushing our story. So we did that, and how that happened was this. By being in the 60s, coming out of the 60s, our first experience was the Watts Rebellion and the Harlem Rebellion in '64. There's certain moments that, and Danny is a master of this, certain moments when the masses in the streets, the masses are revolting, and there's a moment you can seize and push a little further. We learned that from the 60s. We learned that we were organizing in Watts, the Westminster Neighbors Association. And some brothers walked in, Dr. Al Cannon, Dr. Hiawatha Harris, some other brothers who were psychiatrists and general physicians, says, we can get a hospital. So the masses done burned Watts down. They've been trying to get a hospital in the black in Los Angeles since 1947. Because people have been dying between going down Alameda all the way to behind since '47. But because the masses in the streets, you can push the system to respond, and we can seize it. He said, always catch that moment. So seeing them brothers in 65 jump up and go get that hospital done. And the reason why the hospital declined was after these brothers got the hospital done, they gave the brothers to do, they went on back to their practices. Al Cannon moved to Africa, and the hustlers went in and destroyed the hospital. But the brother who did the hospital, they seized it, got the money, and made it happen.
I'm sorry, who did you say destroyed it?
The brothers who came behind them, hustlers,
kinda,
and yeah, they said an opportunity to rip and run and the whole thing, you know. Okay. So we saw those experiences, we understood those experiences, so we knew that the next energy, when Rodney King, when he was jumped on, we knew this was our moment to launch the Pan-African Film Festival. Because we rode on that wave. We got money from the city, we got money from the Reconstruction Organization. We got one of the things that Al Nodell, the head of Cultural Affairs, did for us. He reminded us that there was a 1% set-aside clause, that any new buildings that are built in the city of Los Angeles, 1% set aside for cultural programming. Well, what the developers do, they'll build this building and then get a piece of art and put it in the office, say they contribute to the community, but nobody see it but themselves. So Al told us about it. We said, okay, what we'll do is we'll have the Limleys and everybody else who we started with, we'll take that, whether it was $200,000 or $300,000, and use that to pay our rent for the first 3 years. But that all came from being in the 60s and know what time it was and how to move and so forth and so on. So that's how that happened. We knew that was the moment. Just like this is the moment right now. Yeah. A lady criticized Jada Pinkett a year ago, and we said, don't criticize her. They said, well, how come she didn't speak out 2 or 3 years ago about all the Black Lives Matters and the Oscars so white, da da da. Well, there wasn't no movement. You get stronger when there's a movement.
She felt it.
The minute the masses in the streets with Black Lives Matters, then she was emboldened to say da 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 da. That's what happens. If no movement happened, the people not in the streets, then nothing's happened. So we knew that when we got started in '92. So this was all a conscious decision to do. It wasn't a random decision. We knew that black folks were hungry for films, images, so forth and so on. We knew that people were beginning to make it. It was just a matter of putting it together to make it happen. So from day one, we were successful. We opened the Sunset 5. The Virgin Record Store was there in Sunset 5, Crest Nights and Sunset, and then moved with Magic, and Ken Lombard asked us to move down there. We wanted to move to the Black Room, and they had a movie theater. We moved there. So this is all conscious.
And who are
we were from the 60s.
And who are some of the other founding members? I know they're very notable.
Danny Glover was one of Danny. For those who don't know, Danny, the reason why so many people ask Danny to do things, because if you know, he's probably the most conscious black actor, right?
Yeah.
The reason for that, Danny became, most actors become actors and they become active. Danny was from the movement. He was in the 60s. He was one of the leaders of the first black student union, the first black study center in the country, San Francisco State. He was one of the leaders.
Wow. Okay.
And when they created and seized the first black study center in San Francisco State, then they brought in Mahmoud Baraka, Leroy Jones, to come out and run this black study center. And Baraka told Danny, you look like you might be a good actor. Why don't you get in here and start doing that? Also, Danny's dyslexic. And so he knew acting would help him work on that. Wow. So he comes from a he got here through consciousness. So that was your natural. So we all hooked up with Danny. Janae, the same thing. Janae, what you see with Janae on The Good Times is about a glimpse. She can sing, dance. She was dancing Golden Boy.
Share with some folks who don't know her full name.
Janae Dubois, who was played with Lona on The Good Times. Well, she danced with Sammy Davis on Broadway in Golden Boy back in '59. Wow. She was also one of the super fine sisters that was in Jet and so forth. She's mind, body, and spirit. Yeah. And can do all of that, and that's why she wrote "Moving On Up," and both those two songs. She wrote both of those songs, and to this day she gets the publishing and she gets the composer, because they was clear about these kind of games. Just like the brother from Express Yourself, Charles Wright, owns 100% of his music, of the composing and the publishing. Wow. So we went and got them and said, Dan said, well, let's go. This is the moment, because they understood, let's seize this, because the moment passed. That's why it's only about 6 black film festivals in the country that's really functioning, and 500 film festivals in the country.
How do you feel about the other festivals? I mean, in general, not to, put one against the other, but there's always seems in culture that people, try to compare. I even think there's a Hollywood Black Film Festival happening in a few weeks, but how do you feel about Hollywood Black Film Festival versus other festivals?
Well, 2 things. One, let me show you this book. It says Film Festivals from Europe, Geopolitics to Global Cinephile. This is a history of film festivals. There's a politics to film festivals. And then this is another important book that you all should get. It's called, David Putnam is one who helped Spike's career. And he was the only non-white American to run a studio. He ran Columbia. He wrote a book called The Undeclared War, Struggle for Control of World Cinema.
Whew.
Now,
check that out.
These are articulating there is a cultural struggle going on in the world. And what we're trying to do is get people, the black newspapers, etc., to understand we're involved in a cultural struggle.
Amen.
Which means they're telling their story. Trump is telling his story to his people. We got to tell our story. Now, if we don't tell our story, you're going to get lost. Film festivals were always political. Okay, the #1 festival in the world is Cannes, right? Everybody knows about Cannes. That's what you hear, right? And you see this picture, right? You see on the television, on the smartphone, etc., a big red carpet with thousands of people and so forth and so on. That's what you see, right? Yeah. Now, Cannes is not a private film festival. It's owned by the French government, 100%. And Cannes is not in the Ministry of Culture, where you thought it would be like the Cultural Affairs in Los Angeles. It's in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Berlin Film Festival is not a private, it is run by the German government, rather than run by, all of these are political issues. The white Americans beat the French. The French invented cinema, and the white Americans beat them out of it. So Cannes created the Cannes Film Festival to say, okay, the way we can get into the business is to say that if you don't come to Cannes and get certified by us, then you are just a hustler selling Terminator. The French, the Europeans understand that they are the mothers and fathers of white America, just like Africa is the mother and father of us. So they say, look, you got to come over here and bow down to us and give everything to us because we the ones that created y'all. That works this way. They say, okay, come and get involved in Cannes and get the stamp of approval. And of course, the French see themselves as the most advanced white folks on the whole planet. They're the most cultured, right? That's what they claim. And that's what they do. So they do, and they spend $40 million a year to make that happen. This is not an accident. This holds 4,000 people to do their whole thing. Then if you read in the newspaper, Cannes sells out, Cannes sells out, sells out. The rest of it is 100 or 200 screening rooms that have 50 seats for the press. So that's why it sells out. So in order for us to be seriously involved in telling our story and pushing our story, we have to create film festivals.